Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for coming today. Most of the faces in the audience I recognize, but for those I don't, welcome to this Jefferson Humanists monthly presentation. I hope you enjoy it and learn a lot in the process. For those of you who are not very familiar with Jefferson Humanists, we do a variety of different types of activities and events. Some of them are focused on education and learning. Some of them are just fun events to gather and talk and share ideas. And some are kind of in between, like our monthly book club, where every year we decide in a democratic fashion what books are going to be on the slate for the following year. And they're usually books that have, they're not all books about humanism, but they're books that have some sort of tentacle to humanism or some aspect of them which we can discuss from a kind of a humanist perspective. So I invite you to go to the jeffersonhumanist.org website and learn more about what we do, and you'll also see a calendar there of different events that are coming up, and that'll let you know of opportunities that you might attend events or get involved in some other way. I'm going to mention just a couple of upcoming events, just to get them on your radar screen. One is that during the month of July, we're going to support the Action Center's Back to School Supplies Drive. And during the monthly meeting at the end of July, there will be a collection opportunity. But it's also possible to go to Meetup, and there will be a QR code that you can use to initiate a donation, and they have a way of tracking it back to Jefferson Humanists, which is cool. So there are a couple of different ways you can contribute to that drive. The second of the events I want to mention is that on Sunday, July 12th, there is an arts program. It's called Enduring Stories of Shared Humanity. And there are details, you can find details about that in the weekly blast, but I'll just read you a couple of excerpts. Shakespeare, Cervantes, Homer, and Mark Twain have touched millions of readers, and there's a discussion of these authors, and there's a professor and author, Dr. Andres Lima Encapié, who will talk at this art event. So it sounds like a lot of fun. And FYI, and again, for those of you who are JH members, there's a mention of this in the blast. So just to give a kind of a setup for today's meeting, we appreciate the work of our speaker today, Amanda. And it's a very timely time for that work to be done in light of voter rights and election security and topics like that. And apart from just the common sense reasons to be interested in this topic, I asked myself, why should we as humanists have a special interest in this topic? And I came up with a couple of answers to that question, for myself at least. One of them is meant to appeal to those of you who prefer a left brain examination of things. And that is that voter rights and election security are in alignment with a lot of our humanist values. So, for example, social justice, the consistent and fair application of U.S. laws to all kinds of things, including elections and voting. Things like responsibility, of the role of us as individuals and individual voters in the democratic process. So it aligns with the values that we aspire to promote as humanists. I would also say that for those of you who are receptive to a more of a right brain appeal, that I believe that it's part of our human composition and nature to want to be heard. I remember reading an article years ago which left an imprint on me, and it was about young children and babies in orphanages that were that there were more children than the orphanage could actually sustain and manage well. And the author of this article stated that children would often, cry, as children will do, but in time, a lot of children stopped crying because they realized that no one was coming to provide them attention or food or a change of diaper or anything else that they needed. And so, in a sense, their voices were not being heard, and so they stopped vocalizing. And the result was not a healthy child. That's a child who is alienated from the world and who has concluded at a very early age that they're alone in here, and there's no one who cares about their struggles. And if we kind of do an analog of that to us as adults, I think that when we vote, it's an expression of our voice, and we want and we expect to be heard and recognized. And in the case of an election in a democracy, even if the election doesn't go the direction that we want it to go, we get a satisfaction from knowing that we voted and our voice was heard. And so I see that as a kind of a human impulse or a human drive to want our voices heard. So all of this is to say that as humanists, we have a variety of reasons for wanting to support voter rights and election security, and now more than ever, where we have concrete instances of those rights being under attack, it behooves us to know more about this and to be interested and learn about the kind of work that Amanda is doing. And so that's something to kind of give some thought to during the presentation. So I'm going to turn over the mic to Matthew Elisha, who's going to introduce our speaker and make a few more comments. So here.
All right, welcome everybody. So glad to see so many of you out here on a really hot day. We'll get the slides up here. Oop. Okay. All right. So Amanda Gonzalez is here today. She is our Jefferson County Clerk and Recorder, and she has been the Clerk and Recorder since 2022. Excuse me. I'm off on my math there. That's right. And I'll help Amanda get this on the screen. I'm not sure why it's not showing. When I tested earlier, it worked great. So I want to make it clear, Amanda is actually running for election. She is not here for that purpose. She is here as the Jefferson County Clerk and Recorder. And we think it's an extremely important topic. Right now, you've probably seen they're really trying to push at the national level the SAVE Act. The SAVE Act, if passed, could gut a lot of our best-in-class voting rights here in Colorado. I don't know about you, I think we have the best system in all 50 states. Yeah, thank you. So, one of the things that you've probably heard several times from different people is our voting's not safe. There are people that are voting that aren't actual citizens, etc. And one of the things is we want Amanda to help us understand why that's erroneous. I do know that people like Jan and Dawn and a few others, they actually took a tour of the facility where the votes are counted in Jefferson County. And I think that's done because the election's coming up. But I believe before every election, about a week or 2 weeks or so, even more. So before the election this fall, if you really want to see where all the work is done, please take advantage of one of these tours. So I'm not going to tell you Amanda's background. You have it in the meetup. You have it in the program. One of the things Nancy always does when she's here, and Nancy's away this weekend, that's why I'm doing the intro, is to ask our speakers something that others wouldn't know about them. And when I asked Amanda, she says she's a, quote, crazy dog lady. She's on the board of the Colorado Pet Pantry. One thing you might notice is she does have a tattoo, and on her tattoo is Olivia. And I think you told me, Amanda, you're often fostering, or you have a dog almost constantly, correct? Or more?
I almost always have a senior in my life.
Always.
I am a sucker for a cute little old dog.
Yeah. And that's probably because I was talking too, but Bob, we'll get that up. Oh, okay. We're good. I'm going to go ahead and go to Amanda. Thank you very much, and we're looking forward to her talk.
All right. All right. So good to see you all. Thank you for being out here on such a beautiful day. It's great to see you. So, who has served as an election judge or a poll worker in Colorado? Okay, great. And then who was able to take the tour of Jefferson County's facility? Just a couple of you. Okay, perfect. So if you took the tour, there will be some repetitive stuff because I just wanted to make sure that we had a baseline. And then also, around the election security pieces, I swear, we put a slide deck together and it is out of date about 4 seconds later, in part because our federal administration is constantly changing things, or what I affectionately call shenanigans, right? And I am gonna, the office is, I am an elected official, and I am elected in a partisan election. But once you're in office, and the office itself is run in a really nonpartisan way. So I might insert some of those comments around shenanigans, because I do think that election officials pretty universally, regardless of party affiliation, really want fair elections that are open to all eligible voters. And that is not necessarily always what we're seeing from our current federal government. So with that exception, we'll keep it pretty nonpartisan today if that's okay with you. All right, so what's up here now is that Jefferson County is Colorado's 4th largest county by population. And I brag about this a little bit because it's not a competition, but it kind of is a competition. We have had, in the last 4 years since I've been clerk and recorder, we have had the highest voter turnout that Jefferson County has ever seen. We are not the largest county, but in the 2025 election, we had more individual voters turn up and vote than any other county, including the ones bigger than us. So take that, right? Take that, El Paso and Denver. But it really is something to be proud of, because democracy only works when everyone participates. And so we have an election going on right now. If you haven't voted, those ballots need to get in by 7 p.m. on Tuesday. And I really hope that we come in first again, right? So you can check out the Secretary of State's website and see who's in the lead and go nudge your neighbors to make sure they vote. All right. You know who I am. I don't only oversee elections, I also oversee 5 motor vehicle offices, marriage licenses for the county, land recordings, passport applications, and records for the county. So the entire office is about 115 people full-time, and then we hire up to 900 election judges in a presidential year. All right, so we have elections every year. Right? It is not a once every 4 years kind of thing, which I'm sure you all know because I get the sense that this is a nerdy crowd. But lots of people will ask me, what do you guys do in the off years? I'm like, off years, right? In a presidential, we have 3 elections in 1 year, right? We have 2 this year. We have the one that's going on now, and then we'll have another one in November. We're headquartered in Golden. We are not, the elections office is not in the big R2D2 building. It is on that same campus, though. So if you didn't get a chance to take a tour this round, I do encourage you to join us. We will be doing those in a more heavy rotation in October and November, but it's kind of fun to come see. Okay, so let's start with facts. Who is eligible to vote in Colorado? Which is, you have to be 18 years old by election day. You have to have lived in Colorado, not necessarily your current home, right? So if you are somebody that moves frequently, that's okay. You just have to have lived in Colorado for at least 22 days. Another fun fact is that folks who are experiencing homelessness are still eligible to vote. You do not, we got rid of the rules that said you had to be a property owner around voting a long time ago, right? You do not need to be permanently housed. How we handle those voters is we use the location where you most often sleep, right? So if you're like, hey, I usually am in the parking lot of the Walmart and that's where I sleep at night, we use the address of the Walmart as your voting location to make sure we get you the right ballot. But you are absolutely eligible to vote even if you are not permanently housed. You do have to be a US citizen, and you have to not be serving a term of confinement for a felony conviction at the time of voting. Those were nerdy words, right? So this varies by state. Every state has different rules about who can vote if they've been involved with our criminal justice system. In Colorado, if you are on probation, you're eligible to vote. If you're on parole, you're eligible to vote. If you're serving time for a misdemeanor in a county jail, you're eligible to vote. If you have finished your sentence, you're back in your community, you are eligible to vote. So I like reminding people of that because if you came from a different state, that might not be the case, right? Maybe you saw something on TV about who's eligible to vote in Florida and you assumed that you weren't. I am the annoying voting lady that like orders a burrito in the morning and is like, and by the way, have you voted? Right. And literally the burrito guy, last time I was doing this, said that he was like, oh, I've got a prior, I can't. And I was like, no, you're not currently serving your term. You're eligible to vote. So this is something I hear every election cycle that people don't realize. And we do pre-register voters as young as 15. So you can pre-register to vote, and then the minute you turn 18, you get that ballot in the mail. It's extra fun if your young people in your life have a fall birthday, because then they don't even have to worry about it. Once they're 18, their ballot just shows up. All right. We changed our mail voting system in 2013. We did a really big legislative overhaul. And that is what created same-day voter registration in Colorado. So some other states have up to 30 days in advance that you have to register to vote. Not the case in Colorado, right? If you moved and you're like, oh crap, I didn't update my address, right? This happens often with people who are students, right? Maybe they're moving often for school. No problem, right? If your ballot didn't show up for whatever reason, come into a vote center. We can get you registered and voting on the same day. You don't have to do it 30 days in advance. The other fun fact is prior to passing this bill, we had a permanent absentee list. So you could sign up and say, hey, please just always mail my ballot. And by the time we got to 2013, about 75% of Coloradans had opted in to getting their ballots by mail anyway. This was something that people like, again, regardless of party. Democrat, Republican, unaffiliated, doesn't matter. People like getting a ballot in the mail. It's convenient, right? Sometimes we have really long ballots. That way you can sit at your kitchen table, you can do your research, you can do your Google, you can talk to your neighbors, you can go figure out if the guy you hate across the street has a different yard sign and not vote for that person, right? It is really nice to have these in advance, and it works really well for voters. Okay, has anyone seen this controversy on Nextdoor? Good, that makes me feel better. Right, Nextdoor will just run, and this has been on Facebook too, will just run with weird things. So we have different color envelopes. I think there's a picture, right? This little stripy thing is different colors depending on who's getting the ballot, right? There is no conspiracy theory here, people, regardless of what Facebook is currently saying. One of the things that is sometimes you'll be like, my partner got one color ballot and I got a different color ballot. That probably means that you or your partner are registered with a major party. And the other one of you is an unaffiliated voter. And so we color code these differently because we have to sort them differently, right? If you're an unaffiliated voter in a primary, you got two ballots. You got a Republican and a Democrat ballot. And you had to pick which one you wanted to vote. You can't vote both. And so the folks that are processing those ballots and opening up need to look and make sure there's not two in there because we can't count both of them, right? So it's just a processing thing, but there have been very big feelings on social media about why is mine a different color than anybody else's. So there you go. Okay, you've already seen your ballots, so I don't have to tell you about that. And I'm gonna skip over that. Okay, Everybody has 3 options for returning their ballot. You can choose your own adventure for whatever is best for you. And this is the point where I will pause and talk about one of the things that if I had made this slide deck a week ago, it would have already been out of date. So you may have heard some rumblings about an executive order that our president promulgated in March that would have required 2 things. 1, DHS to create a list of eligible voters, and 2, election officials like me to submit a list of voters to USPS, and they would only deliver the ballots to the people that were on this list. Yes, that is the correct response. I want to be clear, right? The folks that our local USPS folks are amazing. They are great at their jobs. They work incredibly hard. These are not the folks we're talking about, right? Your local folks are amazing. This is political shenanigans that's happening in Washington. And so there was a comment period, and again, if we were having this chat a week ago, I would be begging all of you to give comments on this rulemaking, because USPS did propose a rule that would have inserted them into the process, right? If you weren't on a voter list, they would not have delivered your ballot. We do not want people who are not elections experts deciding who does and doesn't get a ballot, right? It's the same problem with DHS using a bunch of lists that were never meant to be voter lists. We have voter lists. We update them literally daily, right? One of the bills that I worked on prior to being elected, I was the executive director of a nonpartisan voting rights nonprofit called Colorado Common Cause. And in that capacity, I helped write a bunch of our laws, and one of them was automatic voter registration at our DMVs. We literally get daily updates from the motor vehicle offices around who is registered to vote and who changed their address, right? And so using a list that was never meant to be voter registration can cause huge problems. So the good news is 2 different decisions from federal courts have said that this executive order cannot move forward. So the rulemaking process is not going to move forward. We are not going to have any changes, certainly for this year. There is an appeals process that the administration could engage in, and so we may see changes, but as it stands right now, that executive order is not changing anything, and the USPS will not be deciding who gets ballots and who doesn't. So all of this information is still true, right? You get your ballot in the mail, you can drop it off in one of our 24/7 secure drop boxes. Those guys have cameras on them all the time. Please wear your clothes in front of them. The staff appreciates it. You can drop it in the mail, right? Or you can come and vote in a vote center. And anybody who wants to vote in person absolutely can. We have a statewide voter system where if you show up and you vote in person, we mark you as having voted. And then if you mail a ballot back to us separately, we already know that you voted. We count the first one, and you're actually gonna get a note from the DA asking, hey, what's going on? Looks like you submitted 2 ballots. Can you tell us more about this? Right? Okay. Ballot box security. One of the security features of our elections, and this is true anywhere in Colorado, is that your ballot is never alone with one person or one party. One person could very easily physically open that box up and pull the ballots out. We have 2 people have eyes on the ballots at all times so that there's no shenanigans, right? And these 2 folks are different political parties. It's never the same political party. It is one of the reasons that I encourage you to be an election judge if you have the time and capacity, is it makes you feel better about the world, right? These are 2 folks, like if I told certain news stations that I was putting 2 people of different political parties in a van all day together, right? They'd tell me that I was gonna have blood on my hands, and I don't, right? What we have is people that probably see the world differently that come back talking about their grandkids and their dogs. And it is lovely because you get to see hundreds of people who just want to stand up for their community and make sure that our elections happen. It really does, to be clear, some of the jobs are profoundly boring, but they're really critical to making our elections work. So 2 folks drive around all day picking up ballots for you. They have a chain of custody log. The minute these ballots come out of this box, it goes into a box that has a tamper evidence seal on it, so we know if anybody else has opened it up. Oh, look, there's a picture. They're filling out a log. they're putting this little seal on it so that we know if anything funny has happened between it getting pulled out of the box and showing up at our ballot processing facility. All right. Again, so this is once it gets to our facility. This is 7:15 on election night, because we have to have teams at every single drop box because they all have to close right at 7. I'll let you in on a little secret. Don't tell your friends. But we were having some grumpy people who would run up to the drop box at 7:05, and we can't take a ballot after 7 p.m., right? It is heartbreaking. Don't be that person. Please vote early, because we never want you to be that person. It's the same thing if we receive your ballot after 7 p.m. on election night. So if you dropped it in a USPS box on election day, it's not going to get to us in time, and postmarks have never counted in Colorado. And so it is heartbreaking to get those ballots in over the next couple days and know that we can't count them. But we had some grumpy folks. And our election judges, who are lovely people, were dealing with the grumpy folks at the ballot drop box. Sometimes those folks were making threats because you better effing take my ballot. I'm here. It doesn't matter that it's 7:05. And so I really like this elegant solution that one of our election workers came up with, which is we just have a separate ballot bag now. That same one gets the chain of custody, gets the tamper evidence seal on it, but we just say, thank you so much for your ballot at 7:05. Go ahead and put it in this bag that we know came in after 7. They can deal with me or another full-time staff member at a later date when their ballot doesn't get counted. Okay, so these are all of our teams coming back on election night because we have to have one at every one of our 38 different drop boxes so that they could lock it up at 7 o'clock, get the ballots out. There they are with those bags. And then this is our ballot processing facility, which some of you have seen, all coming in, and they are sorting through those ballots. I think I've got, nope, okay. We get all kinds of weird things in the drop boxes. We get divorce papers, we get like your utility bills. Sometimes we get love notes, a couple times car keys. So we have to sort through them to make sure that it's ballots only that we're counting. We also sort out any ballots that are from a different county. So you can drop your ballot off in any drop box in the state, as long as it gets there by 7 p.m. on election night. If it gets to a clerk, even if it's not your clerk, we do a swap the next day. So we all sort out. We inevitably get a bunch of ballots for Denver, which is great, no problem, as long as they're in by 7. And then we go take those to Denver the next day. All the clerks and recorders kind of gather up. If we get some from a faraway place, then we FedEx it over so that they can count it. But any drop box will work. Just get your ballot in. Okay, there's a little video, great. So this is Hal, and Hal is our mail sorter. And so it can go through about 50,000 ballots in an hour. It does 2 passes. The first one is looking at your signature. So you're signing the outside of your ballot. This is another security feature. Hal is using software that's similar to what your bank uses. It's looking at 11 different points on your signature to see if it matches what's on file for you. Using that software, Hal usually matches about 50%. And the other, because we set the confidence interval pretty high. And so anything that Hal is not positive about then goes to humans. So once we only ever open your ballot envelope once we know that you are who you say you are. Right? If we cannot match that signature, your ballot envelope doesn't even get opened. So that second pass of going through the machine is when it like sort of slices the top so that we can open it. But that never happens if we can't match your signature. There is also a cure period. So if we can't match your signature, we're not sure you're you. You get a letter in the mail. If you're signed up for other services, you also will get an email or a text message that says, hey, we're not sure you are who you say you are. You have 8 days after the election to what's called cure your signature. Once we know you are who you say you are, then we process your ballot. And again, we do that for up to 8 days after. That's another reason why on election night, you'll hear all of us saying over and over again, these are not the final results. It's because people have 8 days to cure, and our military and overseas voters have an extra 8 days as well to get their ballots in, because if you're serving in Afghanistan or something, it could take a little longer to get your ballot to us. And yes, we do, yeah.
It's not a hell
We have some nerds that work for us, and so I think that's. The other thing is, yes, we do turn over the list if you do not cure your ballot, and we aren't sure your signature matches. That list does go to the DA's office, and so they follow up with voters. You could get a letter saying, "Hey, what's going on with your ballot?" I will say we almost never have anything that's actually nefarious. What is happening is your partner left it on the table and said, "Oh, will you turn in a ballot for me?" And you were like, "Crap, they didn't sign it," and so you sign it for them. Don't do that, right? We often have parents of maybe college-age students that do the same thing. "Oh, he didn't sign it, I'm gonna sign it for him." Nope, that's not okay. You have to sign your own. A couple times we've had swaps where what we think happened, because we'll get like 10 that all came in on the same day and have addresses close to each other. People have had voting parties where they're like, "Come over to the house, we're gonna have brunch." Maybe they had too many mimosas, I don't know. And so people ended up signing each other's ballots, right? It's not that they were forging anybody else's, it's that we all voted together and I grabbed the wrong envelope and I signed it with my name. So it's usually things like that that have happened. It's not that a nefarious actor has been involved. Okay. I already talked about the first and second pass. Look at me. So what if Hal can't match it? It goes to our signature verification judges. The first judge has a copy of your most recent signature and then the one on your ballot, and that's what they're looking at. It is not uncommon for people who are newer voters, right? Because maybe when you registered to vote, you were at the Pride Parade and you were all excited because it's your first time registering in Colorado, and I signed it Amanda M. Gonzalez. And then the first time I actually voted, I was like, "Oh crap, I just put it on the back of my steering wheel before I dropped it in the box," right? Those signatures might not look like they match, and if we only have one on file, we might not know it's you. Whereas if you are somebody that has been voting in Colorado for years and years and years, once it goes through our first team, if they are unable to match it, then it goes to a bipartisan team, so 2 people looking at your signature, and they have your whole file. So if you've voted in Colorado for the last 20 years and you do it every single time, we have dozens of your signature on file. So we'll be able to see what's going on. The other time it's kind of common is if somebody has a medical event that changes their signature. You can come in to our office and update those. We also are out in the community. We're at kite festivals, we're at high schools, we're anywhere that will take us. And we have signature cards. So if people are worried, "Hey, I don't know if my signature on file is up to date," we can get a wet signature from you then and add it to our file. So if you have a medical event or somebody in your life does, you can reach out to your county clerk and recorder and say, "Hey, I just want to make sure that my ballot doesn't get rejected. Let's make sure and get that updated, my signature changed." Okay. I should take this test. Before we will even train you to be a signature verification judge, you have to take a test of signatures that are examples to see if you have the eye. Do you have a good eye for this to baseline start before we'll even train you to be an election judge? And we have some staff members that don't have the eye. They work full-time in our IT department or something like that, but they're not great at looking at signatures. And so not everybody can do this job. I talked a little bit about ballot curing, that you've got 8 days to make sure that you verify your signature. Look at me, it's like I know this slide deck. Okay, so we've verified your signature. We've gone through all these steps. We've had a chain of custody the whole time. We are finally going to open your ballot. This is another reason why, if you drop your ballot off at 6 p.m. on election night and then get grumpy with me because at 7:05 we don't have all the ballots counted, this is why, right? Okay, so we have finally verified you are who you say you are, and now humans can open your ballot and do what we call separating the vote from the voter, right? The envelope has your name on it. The ballot doesn't. Your ballot is secret. Nobody knows how you vote, including me. We have grumpy people that will call because in a presidential primary, they voted for their favorite person and then their favorite person dropped out of the race. And they're like, "Can I have my ballot back?" And we say, "No, because I don't know which one is yours," right? That's the whole point of a secret ballot, is once it's out of that envelope, we have no idea whose it is. And so the way we do this is, I thought I had a picture, but I don't. It kind of looks like a blackjack table. We've got one person on one side that is opening the envelope because it's got your name on it. And we have two people on the other side that are not looking at that envelope. And they're smoothing out your ballot, opening it up, making sure there's only one in there, making sure it's from this election. People do weird things with their mail. And they will just hang on to ballots because they forgot to vote last time, and then they'll send it in to us 2 years later. It's wild. So we're making sure that it's the right ballot. Also, please don't eat jelly donuts while voting, because sometimes it is gooky in there. And that is not great for the humans that have to open your ballot, but it is also not great because the next step is our tabulation machine. If you are old enough to have ever used a Scantron, I actually don't think they use them anymore. It's a very similar low-tech kind of deal. We can't send it through that machine with jelly on it. And so in that last step, part of what the humans are doing is they are unfolding your ballot, making sure we don't have gook. If we do have gook, then we have bipartisan teams that replicate your ballot for you, right? They'll create a new one. Again, 2 people looking at it so that we always have security, and then we count that one because that's the one that can go through the machine. These guys are not connected to the internet. So this is our most secure room, is our tabulation room. I do not have a key to this room. My badge does not get me into it. Only people whose job is in this room have a key. I can go in, but I have to go in with one of them. It is under 24/7 video surveillance. These machines, like I said, not connected to the internet. And so at 7 p.m. on election night is the first time that we bring all of those scans together. We then take a thumb drive, plug that into a machine that is connected to the internet, that communicates with the Secretary of State's office. That's how you then see the first round of election results on election night. But people will also ask me, like, how's it going? You guys are scanning, like, who's ahead? No one knows, because we have not brought these machines together yet. This is another reason there were some headlines, gosh, was it last year? 2 years ago? There was a password breach, right? So this made some headlines because the Secretary of State's office, an employee accidentally put passwords up on a website, which is not good. You don't want that to happen. And there is a reason that we have multiple levels of security at every step. So those passwords were the BIOS passwords. That is like if you've ever tried to install like new speakers in your computer, you had to log into like a blue screen. That's that password. So to use that password, you first would have had to get into this room because these guys are not connected to the internet, right? So you would have to use one of the 5 keys that exist in the entire world to get into this room. Then you would log onto the computer, which is passwords that we have at the clerk level. And then you would have to use that BIOS password, which is the password you got from the Secretary of State's office, right? It's just like if you had a $10 million diamond ring in your home, you probably wouldn't just have it sitting on your countertop with your one deadbolt locked, right? That's probably in a safe. There's probably a separate code. It's the same thing with elections. You never want to have anything compromised, but you want to build a system that accounts for someone might screw up because these are human processes. And so we have multiple layers of security. So tabulation, which is these little machines, we can start up to 15 days before, so that is happening. We are scanning ballots right now. And so that is why if you want more complete, they're never 100% complete, but if you want more complete results on election night, turn your ballot in early, because we can start scanning and then we have more of them scanned in at 7 o'clock. You drop it off at 6, it doesn't even get back to the office until 6:35, and that's if we picked it up right away. Okay, I've talked about all that. Adjudication. Again, humans are funny. Y'all do crazy things with your ballots. We tell you how to fill out those little bubbles, but you take liberties. Sometimes you write us love notes. Sometimes you have big feelings, and there's scribbles and weirdness. And so we have bipartisan teams whose whole job is when you filled it out, you can sort of kind of see, we've got like some drawings happening over here. If you filled it out in a non-traditional way, and the machine couldn't figure out what is this because it's only trained to read bubbles, 2 humans look at it, and they have a guidebook that is put together by the Secretary of State's office to try and figure out voter intent. Sometimes it's pretty clear because you followed the instructions and you crossed out the one you didn't want because you goofed. No problem. We can figure that out. It's when you get real crazy that it honestly doesn't feel good, right? Because we want to cast that ballot or tabulate that ballot the way you cast it. We want to make sure that your intent was heard. And so please follow the instructions, but that is these judges' whole job, is to make sure that we're figuring that out. Around 40% of ballots usually show up on the last day. I don't love you for this. It means that we are in the office until Jeffco has decided to stay late. A lot of other offices say, like, we cut off at midnight, we send everybody home. We happen to be a team of night owls. And so we stay late, usually between 3 and 5 in the morning, and then we start later the next day. But usually we get about 40% of our ballots returned on election day. It's probably physically impossible to count more than about 110,000 in one day. So we always hope it's fewer than that. And we celebrate, we ring a bell, it's very exciting. I've talked about that. I've talked about 8 days post-election, when you have to make sure you have everything in. Here's a really nerdy thing. So, before anybody votes, we do what is called a logic and accuracy test, where we have a stack of ballots that is printed by our printer that has every combination of votes that you could have to make sure that that tabulation machine is not tabulating in a funky way. It's usually, depending on how many contests are on the ballot, somewhere between 4 and 10,000 that we are scanning through to make sure that the tabulation machine is counting that correctly, right? That there isn't some sort of glitch in the way it's programmed where a vote for candidate A is actually getting tabulated as a vote for candidate B. The other thing that happens at our logic and accuracy test is we have both of the major political parties come in and we give them about 40 ballots that they can fill out in whatever crazy way they want. And then we essentially do a hand count and compare, does the hand count match the way it tabulated, so that we know that the computers are tabulating correctly, and then nothing is touched after that, right? Until you all vote. Then you all vote, we count the ballots, and then we do what's called a risk limiting audit. Colorado was the first state in the country to adopt this statewide. This is open to the public. It's kind of boring, but you're welcome to come. But we have all of your ballots in like those tubs that you store your winter clothes in or your kids' Legos. And they're all organized. When it goes through the tabulation machine, it puts a little number of like which order it was counted in. The Secretary of State's office gives every county a randomized list of which ballots they need to pull for their risk limiting audit. And literally, you are going through those tubs, you are pulling out ballot 1, 2, 3, 4, taking it over to the computer in bipartisan teams, and comparing ballot 1, 2, 3, 4 was a vote for candidate A. Did the computer record it as a vote for candidate A? And so we are counting the paper versus the computer. And another security feature of Colorado's elections, most states are this way now. They don't all do the risk limiting audit, but almost everybody is on paper ballots, right? So if you can remember the 2000 election where there was controversy around the Diebel machines and all of that, right? We are not counting something just electronic. Even if you go in person and you vote on a tablet, one of our ballot marking devices, it prints out paper. You can look at the paper and make sure it is what you decided to vote for and nothing crazy happened before the printing, right? The problem with those chads is you didn't quite know who you were voting for because it lined up in weird ways. So this, it prints out paper, you verify that's how you wanted to vote. What we count is the paper because you can't hack paper. And then we are comparing that paper to the computer after the fact to make sure that there was no funny business that happened somewhere along the way. And every single county has to do that, and every single county has to pass. We've never not had a county pass, and so it would be tricky if we did. We'd have to work backwards and figure out what happened, and perhaps hand count or something like that. I will also say, for anybody who advocates for a hand-counted election, girl, those 40 ballots that the parties come in with and do themselves and then we hand count them, I will say about half the time, they're like, oh, there's a mistake. And then we go recount, and the mistake was the humans. We are pretty bad at counting, actually. And so there is a reason that you want the computer to do it. There is also, imagine trying to hand count 430,000 ballots. We would not have results for weeks and weeks. Okay, I've talked about how we scan and test everything before anybody ever votes. Party representatives, yes, 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 great. Yes, so here's a fascinating and lively picture of the risk limiting audit, right? But that is, these folks each have a ballot that they have pulled out of our little boxes. They are comparing it to the way that the computer tabulated it. Yes. No individual has ever looked. Our voter rolls are constantly updated. We get updates from the motor vehicle office. We get records from CDPHE, which is who does birth and death certificates. It is a constantly updating process. I will also say, I do know that if you lose a loved one, it can be really hard to receive mail for them for a while, and that is tough. CDPHE is one of the ones that takes a little longer to get us the death certificates. So you can, if you lose somebody and you know an election is coming up, you are welcome to reach out to the office so that we can get that taken care of a little faster for you. Otherwise, we wait for CDPHE to send us death certificates. Yes, voting early matters, right? Not only do you get more accurate and more complete results earlier, but also you never know what's going to happen. I hope your cat doesn't get sick, you don't have car trouble, but if you turn it in advance, you know that your ballot is in, you know it's going to get counted, and you are helping the election workers not stay until 3 to 5 in the morning. There's all the information about the office itself. Come chat with us, let us know if you have any questions, but now the fun part. What questions do you have for me about this process, about how elections work, about something crazy you heard on the news? Yeah.
And we will use, let Tom get that on. We will use the mic, and please hold it up close to your mouth.
So could you go over some of the kind of basic training that volunteers do have to go through in order to become, to work and do this work?
Yeah. So it is specific to the job because as you saw, all of those jobs are really different. And I know we all think of these folks as volunteers, but I just want to give a plug to say that it is a paid position. You are never going to get rich. Sorry. But it pays about $20 an hour to come work for us. So you are a temporary election worker. And I also will plug, if you've ever considered doing this, think about signing up for November. The reason I'm saying that is we are over recruiting. I hope that I never call, honestly, more than half our list. But if we have shenanigans, right, we are making contingency plans for everything. So if USPS just goes down and isn't delivering any mail in October, right, we are making plans to make sure we still get you your ballots. But it's going to take a lot more people power. If we had a situation, again, I don't expect any of this to happen, but we plan for all of it. If we had a situation where we had federal agents at drop boxes and we needed to provide people with additional ways of dropping off their ballot that felt safer to them, we would need more people power. So there are scenarios where we might need a lot more people to be involved and be election judges. So consider signing up for November if that's, whether you've done it before or not. The training varies wildly. Right, so we don't have a lot of jobs that are only 1 or 2 days, which is why it's a little harder to recruit people. We have an early vote period in Colorado that's 22 days long, and that is really crucial for making sure that people have access. Right, if you work multiple jobs, you might not have a lot of days off. We want to make sure that you have options to come in, and it means that we need election workers for a month or more. So if you are somebody that is helping to cast those ballots, so opening the envelopes. That's a shorter training. If you're somebody that is driving around to pick up the ballots out of drop boxes, we're training you on chain of custody, we're training you on how to track those bags, but you don't have to stay there for days and days the way you might need to if you're a signature verification judge. So it really depends. Trainings are anywhere from like 4 hours to a couple days. Yeah.
Not to be too controversial, but
Let's do it.
Clerk Tina Peters was accused of
Convicted.
and convicted, and she had the same job you have, right?
Yes.
So what exactly did she do, and is there actually a possibility she's going to get sprung out early?
She's already out.
She's already out.
She is not only out, but she is like on the radio saying her lies again. So yes, and that was really upsetting for a number of reasons, right? So what did she do? The oversimplification is she forged credentials to get into that room that I told you I don't have keys to, right? And made copies of information on those computers that she was not entitled to make. And then shared them with the pillow guy, because that's normal. Yeah, and I will tell you, look, when I ran for office, prior to running for office, when I was at Common Cause, I ran the state's largest nonpartisan election protection effort. Trained a couple hundred attorneys every year. We had a hotline in English and Spanish that people could call if they were experiencing voter suppression or if they just had a question about the election. So I worked pretty closely with clerks throughout the state, even before I was one. And every election official I knew in 2020 got some version of a death threat. When I decided to run for clerk and recorder, which is a position that sounds like it makes copies. Nobody knows what the hell a clerk and recorder is, right? I still asked friends, hey, if this gets ugly and I need a safe place for more than a month, could I live with you for more than a month? That is a question that I had to ask running for local office. Our staff often don't tell people what they do for a living. The person that does data entry for your voter registration forms. That is not somebody that should have to worry about telling their neighbors or friends what they do for a living. That person has told me, I just say I do data entry for the county. No one asks any question after that, right? That is the problem with Tina Peters continuing, and election deniers more generally, continuing to spread lies, right? Because it has real consequences. We have staff members that were doxxed in 2020. Pictures of their kids on yucky websites. And these are not politicians. These are not people that ran for office. These are people that are career public servants who work for their local county. And so that is why, regardless of party, the County Clerks Association, the majority, I'm a Democrat, but the majority of clerks are Republicans. There's 18 out of 64 of us that are Democrats. And pretty much universally, people are saying, this is not okay. You can't be spreading election lies. You can't be encouraging people to be violent. And she's already back on the radio. So it's really unfortunate. Yeah.
Amanda, thinking about the growing role of technology and AI in just about everything we do, I've inferred from your presentation and from the tour the other day that probably the enduring role of human beings in the process will be, number one, moving ballots from point A to point B. Number two, handling the exceptions, whether it's the signature mismatch or spaghetti sauce on the ballot. and number three, doing these audits you mentioned. Mm-hmm. But I mean, would you agree that 20 or 25 years from now, that's humans will likely still be involved in yes. those three things, would you say?
Yes. Technology continues to evolve, and we have to evolve with it. There are some ways that we're using AI, and it's funny because okay, here's an example. When I was working at this nonprofit, we had an intern, and we couldn't get this old clunky nonprofit computer to work. And I was saying lots of very helpful things, like, have you turned it off and turned it back on again? And she looks at me and she goes, would you say you're good at technology or you're good at technology for your age? Oh, for my age is probably the correct answer. Right, and so I don't see myself as I'm always ahead of the tech, but we were one of the first offices to start using AI for general questions. So those chatbots that are on websites, I hate those things, and I thought everyone did, and I am wrong. People love them. And so we have trained, it's not like a ChatGPT situation. It is closed. It is just the information that we have given it so that it's not inventing things. But we started using it first in our motor vehicle office and then for general election questions, because a lot of the questions we were getting were kind of the basic. Where can I turn it in? How late can I turn it in? That kind of stuff. And so we didn't have people that needed to be on hold. So I do think that we should be harnessing technologies to help people and to make things more efficient, but security has to trump. Right? We have to make sure that all of these processes are safe and secure. I often get questions about internet voting and how close is that? Frankly, not very close, because the security is just not there yet. And this is our most fundamental right. This is the way that you have your voice heard on any issue, and we cannot take risk. And so I agree with you that I think humans are going to be the way we get this done for a very long time to come. Yes.
Citizenship is a requirement for voting.
Yes.
I've often wondered, how is citizenship determined?
Yeah. So this is another thing that changes over time. So for our purposes, you are signing under penalty of perjury when you register that you are a citizen. Most people also use their driver's license or social security card to register to vote. It is a teeny tiny number of people that don't provide one of those two things. When you get a Colorado driver's license, you are showing proof of citizenship. We have two processes for driver's license in Colorado, one for folks who are citizens and one for folks who are not. And so if you are getting registered through that automatic voter registration, which has registered more than 800,000 people since we passed it in 2018, it's the majority of how people are getting registered these days, you are showing proof of citizenship at the DMV. If you are registering in a different way, you are likely using that Colorado ID, which already did that, or your social security number. But you are also signing under penalty of perjury saying that you do meet these requirements. You are a citizen, you are 18 years old, you've lived in Colorado at least 22 days. Yeah. You're getting all your steps in.
Couple more questions.
How do you combat election or methods like that? Because they can just say,
Yep.
you know, oh, that election is rigged,
Yep. Yeah.
and not have to support their evidence. How do you combat that? Because
Yeah.
it's kind of a big thing.
I think there's two different kind of groups of people here. One is the folks that are not coming at this with genuine curiosity, right? There are folks that are very invested in their conspiracy theory regardless of any evidence. And those folks, I am probably not going to change their mind, at least not right away, right? Like if you are just really invested in your conspiracy theory, like that's a problem for all of us. And then there are the in my opinion, better people who maybe they saw something on the news that didn't sound right to them, and so they have a genuine question, and they're like, this doesn't sound right, tell me how it works, right? Questioning in a democracy is really healthy. That is a good thing, right? That is the reason that we are doing all these community events. It's the reason that we give tours of the facility. And so one of the first things we do is we say, makes sense that you had that question, come see it for yourself, right? Come actually watch the process. We're happy to answer questions. We have invested pretty heavily in our online communications, and we have a full-time comms department to get accurate information out. The other thing that we've done is we've created a community advisory group, because while I think I am delightful, not everyone does. And so there might be more appropriate messengers than me for accurate information, right? Maybe for college students, somebody who's younger and looks more like them is a better messenger. Maybe for somebody who is a 75-year-old white Republican man, somebody that looks more like him is a better messenger. And so we have this community advisory group that advises policies in the office, but also hopes to get accurate information out to the communities that these folks are from. So it's a lot and it's nebulous.
Yeah. So it seems like the system you have set up here, it appears to be fairly resilient to shenanigans.
Yeah.
Are you aware of perhaps other counties who, not necessarily in Colorado, maybe other parts of the country that have fairly antiquated systems in place that don't have a lot of checks and balances, that are very vulnerable to shenanigans?
Yeah. So ours is phenomenal in that not the risk limiting audit, I think, sets us apart. Not every state does that. In fact, very few do. As far as modernized equipment, that varies wildly from state to state. I will say that there were dramatic improvements after the 2000 election, right? Because we saw how antiquated some of these systems were and how much they varied across the country. And a lot of it had to do with funding, right? This is not a cheap operation. Every election is millions of dollars. And so, right, if we're gonna hire 900 people, if we're gonna train 900 people, getting the equipment out to all of the libraries and stuff where we have vote centers, mailing 430,000 ballots, right? It adds up. And so there was a grant program that was created in the wake of what happened in 2000. They are called HAVA grants. I am not going to be able to come up with that acronym off the top of my head right now. But it created funding from the national level that helps pay for those kinds of upgrades because a lot of local communities could not afford them.
So we're going to do Carly here, then Bob, and we'll call that good.
Okay.
Thank you for this. This has been great. Is there anything that precludes people from helping out as an election judge or anything?
Yeah.
Can you participate in different counties in which we don't live?
I love this question.
Tell me more about that.
Yes. So you do have to be a registered voter in Colorado. The exception to that is we do have student election judges. So if you are pre-registered and you're 15, 16, 17 years old, you can serve as an election judge, especially during the summer. We actually have some young people that are helping to answer the phones. It's great. So you can be an election judge, you can be a student election judge, but otherwise you have to be a registered voter in Colorado. There are a handful of convictions around fraud that make you ineligible. So if you have a fraud conviction, you're welcome to chat with us. You can serve in other counties, and I really encourage folks to do this, especially if you live somewhere where the county next door has a different political flavor than your county. A great example of this is Boulder and Weld. They share a border, but really different politics. And so Weld can never find enough Democrats, and Boulder can never find enough Republicans. And we need both teams for those bipartisan jobs, which all of them are. And so if you live close to somewhere that is a pretty different party than you, I really encourage you to apply to be an election judge there as well, because they might really need folks of your political persuasion. So, yeah. In Jeffco, we often don't find enough Republicans. So if you are a Republican or have Republican friends, send them our way. We need more Republican judges.
Hi, my name is Bob Hoffman, and my question for you, do you feel like there's someone in the wings that is capable and talented as you to take over your job when you are elected?
That's so kind of you. Yes, so I am not running, we just have the clerk hat on, but I am going to be leaving this position one way or the other at the end of this term. And I will say the staff is phenomenal, right? You saw what a complicated process this was. There is no way that any one human does this. And so the staff are permanent, they will be there, and they are phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal. And then I don't comment on anybody running for office while I have the official clerk and recorder hat on.
Good answer.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, so let's give Amanda a big round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
And I'm especially thankful she was able to spend so much time with us. She was at the Pride Fest today also, spending a lot of time out in the sun.
Yes, sorry.
So just a couple of things. We have changed things for the summer. So we do have food. We hope we have plenty of food out there. So if you want to stay after, have some conversations about what we heard, or just visit, we welcome everybody to do that. The one thing, if you brought any food, please take it with you if there's any leftovers. Otherwise, we're not going to keep it. And then the last thing, you may notice out there, there's a whole bunch of books. That is our Jefferson Humanists library. We are downsizing based on our storage. Those are all completely free. If you want to add some books to your collection, there's a lot of great books. Anything that isn't taken, we're going to go ahead and we'll donate to the Jeffco Public Library, etc. And we also invite you, if you take a book and you feel generous, give us a donation. That money will go to our Humanist Helping Humanity group. So thank you very much. And if you could help us get some chairs moved to the sides and stacked, we'd appreciate it.
All right.